Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Germany is intensifying its engagement with the Gulf region, aiming to diversify energy supplies, expand arms partnerships, and strengthen trade ties. Now, Chancellor Friedrich Merz's three-day tour of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE highlights Berlin's push to reduce reliance on the U.S. and China while navigating human rights and regional security concerns. We're now joined by Roland Freudenstein, co-founder of Brussels Freedom Hub, to discuss it further. Good to have you back on TVP World.
Good morning, Sascha. Thanks for having me.
So it's 3 days. The Chancellor is traveling through these various countries. What, in your mind, is going to be his main objective here? What's success look like at the end of this trip?
Well, success, above all, looks like diversification of supplies, of trade, of energy supplies, and even of military partnerships. And that goes for both sides, by the way. It's not just Friedrich Merz wanting to make Germany less dependent on even the United States these days, but it's also the Gulf partners that might want to diversify their own trade relations and dependence on military supply deliveries. So it's a win-win for both sides, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk about this energy component, because right now Germany is getting around, I think, well over 92% of its LNG from the United States. That's a heavy dependency there. How realistic will this trip, let's say, give the Germans and Chancellor Merz an alternative here? Will Qatar, already a supplier, but how much more is he going to get?
Well, precisely, Qatar is already supplying a lot of liquefied natural gas in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I mean, that's when at the time, Social Democrat Green German government actually diversified away from Russia towards the Gulf monarchies. And for LNG, this was above all Qatar. And now the same thing is happening with a Christian Democrat government that wants to diversify away from the United States. Call it the new pragmatism, but LNG is actually only one component of the formula. The other one is a green hydrogen, of which the Emirates allegedly can deliver a lot to Germany. And so that's also part of the new effort to actually become less dependent on one single source of energy.
Mm-hmm. You spoke about this new pragmatism. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia for a moment. I mean, that's a country where traditionally Germany doesn't have a heavy diplomatic presence. Also, in terms of those weapons and arms sales, I want to come back to that, because for quite some time there was a block of German companies, wasn't there, of actually exporting to Saudi Arabia. That's changing now. Why, and how is this going to impact also public perception back in Germany?
Well, the question of arms exports was always especially sensitive in Germany, obviously, because of historical facts and Germany's past. So there's a traditional hesitation, even a legal ban on supplying weapons to regions of conflict, as it's called. And the Middle East was generally counted among those. Now, in Israel's case, that already has been mitigated for a long time, because Israel, again, is a special case for Germany because of its past. But the Gulf monarchies are already clients of Germany in some weapon systems, but so far big strategic ones, such as, for example, fighter planes or military transport planes, that has so far been still on the list of weapons not to be exported to the region, and that is definitely being done away with at the moment as we speak. So concretely, there are two kinds of sophisticated weapon systems that Merz will offer to his hosts, and that is the Eurofighter, a fourth generation fighter plane, and the the military transport Airbus A400M. Both may not be the biggest and the latest state-of-the-art systems, but they're actually well priced, I would say, and they can fulfill very, very important tasks. And for the Gulf monarchies, it's also important not to be completely dependent on the United States. Under Donald Trump, we've seen that US support or actually antagonism can alter very, very quickly. And countries don't want to rely purely on the United States anymore. And that's not only true for Europe, that's also true for the Gulf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, you said this is a win-win. Let's dig into that a little bit more with the United States. I mean, the U.S. Heavily present, that relationship, especially with Saudi Arabia, that's very deep in terms of also oil. How much of this is a play by Germany and maybe also indirectly by the Europeans to maybe also have more of an influence in this region? Also vis-a-vis, if you're looking at, you mentioned Israel, also what's going on with Iran. How much of a power, how much of an influence can Germany wield in all this?
Well, Europe has been kind of punching below its weight for some time already, not only the Middle East, but especially there. And the feeling is that Europe and Europe's biggest nations should actually try to play a more active role. So when it comes to weapon systems, what we just discussed, energy deals, but I think there will also be some coordination on what to do about when things get dramatic in Iran. Well, there already are dramatic in terms of crushing protests, but we might see regime change. We might very well see military strikes, massive military strikes by the US in the upcoming days or weeks. And all this means that not only the countries of the region, but also the Europeans, if they want to play a larger role, will have to do some crisis preparation, some contingency planning.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, Merz is there obviously on behalf of Germany, but there's always that European Union element. How much of what he's doing there now is aligned with, let's say, what Brussels is thinking, what other European leaders are thinking, or is this more of a unilateral German approach?
That's a very good question. Ideally, Merz would discuss these things with at least his main partners, meaning France above all. Whether this happened in this case or to what extent it happened in this case, I don't know. I think that the goodwill is certainly there by Friedrich Merz to coordinate. France within the European Union is Germany's biggest partner. Poland is also very important. Italy has become a new strategic partner of Germany now in the EU context. So I think he would want to discuss this beforehand with his counterparts in the other capitals, at least in 2 or 3 capitals. But at the same time, we've seen, for example, in this question of talking to Putin suddenly, that we still have some solo initiatives here. This last one that I mentioned with talking to Putin, that's a French initiative, which is not fully coordinated, and certainly Macron cannot claim to speak on behalf of the whole European Union. So, it's a bit of an open question to what extent Merz goes there as the representative of the EU. I think first and foremost, that is about Germany itself and bilateral relations between Germany and the Gulf monarchies.
Mm-hmm. And just quickly at the end, I want to ask, because you mentioned Putin, there's a significant day today on Thursday. It's the end of the New START treaty. So essentially the last bit of treaty restraining nuclear proliferation between the United States and Russia. Going back now, we're back to 1972, really. What do you think, just briefly, what is the biggest consequence of all this?
Well, it means that in this new world of might makes right, dog eat dog, great power competition, nuclear weapons become part of the competition precisely. So this may mean a new nuclear arms race, maybe this time more between the US and China in the long run. But Russia is still modernizing its nuclear forces, and so it will be part of that game. I think it all makes defense budgets grow, and it makes the world less secure, I believe. I mean, that's the consequence that we can see at the moment. And in a final conclusion, I would say that Europeans will have to develop their own nuclear deterrence in the long run, while being, for the moment, completely dependent, or no, largely dependent on the United States.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, always fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Roland Freudenstein there. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here for more news and commentary on TVP World. Goodbye.